So perfect timing. Hello everyone, my name is Jarek Buchholz. I'm the founder of Canada Real Estate Investors Club, and I would like to welcome today Madeleine Ficaccio. Is it right? Pronounced right, Madeleine?
Yes, it is, Jarek.
Perfect.
Good job. It's just like the bread.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And today I would like to have possibility to introduce Madeleine. She is one of not so many successful real estate investors located in Calgary, and I have a privilege to know her personally. So she's been a very active investor many years. How many years, Madeleine?
We're about 10 years now.
10 years, okay, and you have achieved a lot. You have achieved a lot of success, especially with the RAIN group, right? So can you share with me today that you have achieved some honors today, right, or yesterday? Top 10 for 2010?
Well, I guess for 2010 we won not Player of the Year, sorry, Top Player 2010, and we've won Top 10 Alberta South for 3 years in a row prior to that, and Renovator of the Year, and plus we've achieved our Diamond status there, which is if you've done over 100 deals. So, yeah. I
see. So congratulations. So that's a huge privilege for me.
Thank you.
And definitely for all the attendees today. And I see a lot of familiar faces. Thank you very much for joining. Just for your information, I do truly believe that interaction is very welcomed, and you can ask the questions as long as we will go through the presentation. So if you're not familiar with that application, please raise your hand and type it on the chat. And what I'm going to do with Madeleine will follow up with and go through the presentation, and I will be monitoring all the questions. And in the middle of the presentations, if you do not mind, I will just ask you to stop it and then follow up with the questions. Is it okay for everybody?
Sure, no problem.
Perfect. And for your information also, we are recording the presentation and will be available on canadarig.com website, so you can refer to anybody else, or you can review it and follow up with Madeleine later on. That's no problem, okay? So, are we ready? Madeleine, it's all yours.
Yep, we're ready. Okay, thanks, Jarek, for the introduction. I appreciate it. And thanks also for inviting me to talk today. As Jarek said, my name is Madeleine Ficaccio. I'm the owner of the Via Group, Inc. for about 9 years now. I started out with lots of training and specializing in purchasing mostly foreclosures and undervalued properties. We used to purchase them with joint venture partners. We ran out and flipped them, but then I kind of changed my strategy and started selling the contracts to other investors, sometimes with a lease option tenant or a regular tenant in place. So basically I structured the deals for investors and sold them under market and kind of turnkey investments here in Canada. The other end of our business was purchasing mostly main floors and basement suites, which graduated eventually to 4plexes and 6plexes, all with joint venture partners, and they funded and qualified on the mortgages. Now, when the boom began, of course, foreclosures were no longer to be found. Anyone could sell their house for $50,000 more than they thought they could the next day. So foreclosures in Calgary, for instance, went from about 45 a week that I was marketing to down to about 5 of them. And it was you know, quite the change for us who were you know, specifically targeting that market. It was big business before then, and then all of a sudden there was, you know, not many to be had within our marketplace. So also before the boom, we were able to assume mortgages without qualifying, which was really nice, and so I did a lot of that. But a boom never lasts forever, so because many people were panic buying and almost anyone could get a mortgage. They were overspending on properties, and that would later end up being their downfall. So that's kind of where things are right now. Many people have houses that are worth less than or the same as the value of their mortgages, and they've now lost their jobs or they can't afford to pay the mortgage for whatever reason, and that's put them in a really difficult position because they can't afford to pay a realtor. So at the same time, it's become a lot more difficult for investors and for home buyers to qualify on new mortgages with new rules in place, and of course we can't any longer assume mortgages without qualifying, which has made things a bit more difficult. So although it's made things more difficult, in my experience, it's actually created a great opportunity for people who learn how to do agreement for sale and lease options. And for those of you that do learn how to do them well, you kind of end up in the minority, and you're able to make a good income off these techniques. So you're not only able to use them for purchasing property for yourself, but you can also do what I did, which was structuring the deals to sell them to other investors that don't know how to do them. Lease options being a lot more popular, a lot more people know how to do them, whereas agreement for sale, not so much. You know, it's a very, very small market that knows how to do the agreement for sale. So anyways, on that note, let's get started. And tonight we're going to talk about the difference between a lease option and agreement for sale. And I'm going to be teaching all about agreement for sale at the Canada REIC seminar in Calgary on February 24th as well. So for tonight, I'm just going to kind of cover the differences, and then we'll get into a lot more detail on agreement for sale at the REIC, Canada REIC seminar. So let's get started here. Okay, so when we're purchasing, there's several ways that we can buy. So number one, of course, we can put on a new mortgage onto the property, which, as we all know, isn't as simple of a process anymore. We can qualify for that ourselves, or we could have a joint venture partner qualify for us. Number two, we could assume the existing mortgage with qualifying, which you know, can make sense in the current market, because if you find a property, say, that you're buying for $300,000 and the mortgage on it is $280,000, it might make sense to qualify with that existing mortgage, because then you only have to put $20,000 down. And us as investors, we know that normally you're needing to put 20 or 25% down as an investor. So, you know, you have to normally put down $80,000. So sometimes it makes sense to assume that existing mortgage that's on the property. Also, it could just be a really good mortgage that's on there and better than you can get on your own right now. You could also ask the owner to carry out a vendor take-back mortgage, especially if there's a lot of equity, or maybe there's no current mortgage on the property, so it's free and clear title. And then, of course, as we're going to go through tonight, the agreement for sale, or otherwise known as a wrap mortgage, and then also a lease option, which is very similar to the agreement for sale. So we'll go through those details tonight, and it's also referred to, you know, commonly in the marketplace as rent to own. Okay, so there's also several ways that we can sell in this market. So I do have preferences depending on whether I'm buying or I'm selling, and we'll get into that in a little bit as well. But so the buyer as well could put on a new mortgage. They can assume the existing financing with qualifying. So if you have a mortgage on there and you're okay with them assuming that mortgage if they qualify, you can sell it that way. Then we can do an agreement for sale for them, which, you know, on a wrap mortgage, you can make more interest on that, because you make interest on the first mortgage. So for instance, if you were selling the property to them for $350,000 and there's a $300,000 first, you could get them to maybe put down a deposit of $20,000, and then you're carrying, say, $330,000 at 7%. So if you were doing something like that, maybe the first mortgage is a 4% mortgage, so you're making interest on the interest of that first mortgage, and then the balance of the $30,000 you're making 7% on. So, you know, that's considered a wrap mortgage, and that's one way that you can go ahead with selling it. Or you could also sell on lease option, and so you're leasing it to them with the option to purchase within a certain time period. Both of them they'd be putting down a deposit for. Okay. All right, so let me see here. Agreement for sale. So this is, we're kind of going right now over the agreement for sale versus a lease option. And sorry, I just got to get my notes together here. Now, because we can no longer assume mortgages without qualifying, a suggested way around this is by way of an agreement for sale or a wrap mortgage. So with agreement for sale, you actually have an interest in the property and you're under an obligation to purchase. So it's a much stronger contract that you're on versus a lease option. There's an end date, and if you don't close by that date, you could lose the property. You control the property. So because you have control of the property, you have the right to do what you want with it. So for example, you could list it with a realtor if you wanted to sell it. You could do a for sale by owner. You could put a lease option tenant in there. You could just rent it out to a tenant. Or you could sell it, again, on an agreement for sale. So you're buying on agreement for sale and you're selling on an agreement for sale. Okay, but you control that property and you're able to make those decisions on it. So both the title, or no, you don't have to personally guarantee it, and you don't have to qualify on the mortgage. So the title stays in the original owner's name until you pay them out. Okay? So you don't really carry much of the risk aside from your initial deposit. All right? Let me know if I'm going too fast or anything here. Now, what I usually recommend is that you get a power of attorney signed with your lawyer at the beginning of negotiations when you're purchasing the house. And the reason being is this gives you full rights to sign with respect to that house. So if, say, about 6 months before the end of the term, you can go to the bank and you can see if you're able to renew that mortgage. And they might let you sign on a renewal of that mortgage, which would extend your term that you have that under contract for, right? So, and the reason I say 6 months before the end of the term is because if they don't allow you to renew, you still want to have time to do something with that property, whether you're going to sell it or you're going to get new financing on it or whatever you're going to do at that time. Because, you know, if you've got a longer term, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is that is left on that term, the value may have gone up, you know, quite a bit over that time, and there might be some different things that you can do. Okay, so with an agreement for sale, if the buyer does not make the payments, it can be much more challenging to get them out of the property than a lease option is. The procedure is more like a foreclosure than a simple tenant eviction. So it can take much longer and it can be much more expensive. So that's kind of one of the negatives about agreement for sale. Usually, you know, for ourselves, if something like that were to happen, you're going to try to get them out in a different way other than having to do an eviction procedure. You might pay them to leave. You know, we've done stuff like that in the past too. You know, paying them X amount of money to just leave is, you know, sometimes better than it taking, you know, 3, 4 months to get them out, and a lot less expensive as well. Okay, so lease options. With a lease option, as most of you probably know, you're a tenant with the option to purchase that property. So you don't actually have ownership in it, you're a tenant with the option to purchase it. So we use 3 separate contracts. One is a standard purchase agreement, and which we can't fill in all the information at the time that they're signing everything up, because oftentimes different variables at the end that change. You know, there might be a change in purchase price if they put in additional deposit money throughout the term, those sorts of things. So can't really fill it all in at the beginning, but we do put the purchase agreement with it, with the names and whatever you can put on there. Then we fill in the lease agreement. So because remember, they're actually a tenant, usually called a tenant buyer, and so they're on a normal lease agreement, so that if for whatever reason they don't pay you the rent, then it automatically reverts to them being a tenant in the property. And then we also attach a lease option, and it's a lease option, which is an additional contract to the other two that gives them the option to purchase that property. Okay, so they don't have to, they don't have control of the property. They'll normally have to get permission from the seller if they want to sell the property to anyone else, or if they want to bring in a new lease option tenant to take over their contract. You know, if they've put down $10,000 and, you know, a year has come and gone and they're realizing, you know what, I'm not going to be able to qualify on this. I'm going to find somebody else to buy me out and pay me back my $10,000, have somebody come in. Normally they have to have permission of that, so they don't have near the control of the property as you do with an agreement for sale. And they don't have to follow through on the purchase if they decide not to. That's you know, that's part of the deal. And now, if they pay late, which is different from an agreement for sale, their lease option contract automatically becomes null and void. Okay? So therefore, they become solely a tenant for breaching their contract. So because of that, if you need to evict, you do your eviction through landlord court, and it's much simpler and less time-consuming, and much, much less costly procedure than with the agreement for sale. You know, we can usually get them out in a few weeks. And in saying that too, you know, because their contract is null and void, what we'll do is if they want to put it back into play, that's fine, but we'll charge them a fee to put it back into play, which, and it's not the fee that we're really wanting. What it is that they know we're serious about making the payment on time. So it's just a bit different procedure, a bit simpler procedure than an agreement for sale. Okay. Now, similarities that are between the agreement for sale and lease option are, number one, under both scenarios, you'll eventually have to qualify on a mortgage. You know, under agreement for sale, you should be able to, you may be able to renew that mortgage and get it extended for a longer period of time, which, you know, you don't on a lease option. You're not able to do that. But I mean, they may give you more time if you're on a 2-year lease option and you're buying it on a lease option, and they allow you a 1-year extension. You may get that additional time. But in general, eventually, you're going to have to qualify on a mortgage. And number two, in both scenarios, you're going to lose your deposit if you don't follow through with the purchase, either way. So what I like to do is I like to have my buyer, if I'm buying on an agreement for sale, whatever I'm doing with that property, if I have to put down, say, $10,000 to get that property on an agreement for sale, what I'm going to be doing then is bringing in a lease option tenant or agreement for sale person that are going to be putting down at least $10,000. Because if they're putting down at least $10,000, they're covering what I already put down. So then I'm at no risk, right? Because they paid my deposit for me. So that's kind of how I structure things. So personally, I like to keep the control in my hands. People who know me maybe say that I'm a bit of a control freak. My preference is to buy under an agreement for sale, and because if I buy under agreement for sale, I hold the control, and if I sell under a lease option, I still hold that control, right? So that's kind of how I try to structure it. So today, there's great opportunity with lease options, and you know, you know, for the same reasons that I spoke about earlier, that we can no longer assume mortgages without qualifying. So because of that, it's created a big opportunity for those of you who learn how to do agreement for sale and lease options. A lot of people don't know how to do them, and because of that, if you can create that and you can learn how to do that and teach it to people and bring them that product, there's you know, a great opportunity for you to do that. Not just for bringing that product to someone else, but also for buying it yourself. Like I said, during the boom, people were overspending. They're taking on 95 to 100% loan-to-value financing, and they couldn't afford to do it. Everybody thought the boom would never end, so they were comfortable in their purchases and, you know, buying as much as you could and just really, really overspending. So when the boom did end, the prices dropped, job growth and the economy slowed. All of a sudden, they can't afford to continue making the mortgage payments, or and they can't afford to sell because their mortgage is at or higher than their mortgage is worth. So if you can provide them with an agreement for sale option, it's usually really appealing to people. Because some people say to me, well, how do you, you know, convince them that they're going to, that you're going to take over their mortgage and you're going to make the payments and it's going to stay in their name, and the title's going to stay in their name and the mortgage is going to stay in their name. Well, you know, you think of it this way: if you're in foreclosure, or you're you may not be in foreclosure, you may just be struggling with your mortgage payment, and maybe you've got a job somewhere else or something and you need to leave and you need to get out of that property. Number one, you can, you know, if somebody takes it over on agreement for sale, you're building their credit. As long as you're making those payments every month, you're building their credit for them, right? And because it's not your credit you're building, because it stays under there, so that's positive for them. And they're getting out from, you know, a bad situation. So they're actually, most people in the situation are more than willing to sell their house on an agreement for sale. So then you don't have to qualify, you don't have to personally guarantee, and you can provide that service to another investor or general public that are looking to buy a home, and it's something different from the norm that allows them to purchase a house that they normally couldn't purchase otherwise without you setting that up. So yeah, I mean, the properties are underwater because they're worth less, or they're close to their mortgages. It gives you the opportunity to buy with very little down payment too. If you purchase under agreement for sale, you can get them, you know, for really, really low because they're so close in price.
Okay.
Okay, so who do you sell to on an agreement for sale or lease option? I often get that question as well, you know, because people are concerned, well, how am I going to find somebody to sell it to? Well, because many people can't get financing, both investors and homeowners. There's actually a large market who can't qualify on mortgages, so if you can show them how to purchase a property without having to put a mortgage on, they're usually really eager to listen to you about that. Remember that you're providing a home with no qualifying or no personal guarantees. So you're providing a huge service, you know, that can be sold both to investors and home buyers, or for yourself just purchasing property as well. So again, I guess I got ahead of myself here that, you know, I keep the control in my hands, purchase under agreement for sale. This is just what I prefer to do. So many investors purchase on agreement for sale and sell agreement for sale, or purchase on lease option and sell on lease option. So just my personal opinion, I like to sell or to purchase on the agreement for sale to keep the control in my hands, and then sell under a lease option to again keep the control in my hands in case they don't pay or something like that happens. So yeah, so I hope that helps to explain things a little with the differences between agreement for sale and lease options. And like I said earlier, I'll be teaching all about agreement for sale at the next seminar for Canada REIT in Calgary on February 24th. And I know some of you don't live in Calgary, but I'm assuming, Jarek, is that presentation, the live seminars that go on, will be recorded as well and put on the site?
Definitely, that's the way to do it, right? We are living in such kind of We are living in such kind of society that everybody is kind of lazy. They don't want to go far away from their home. So yes, we will record it.
Yeah.
And we will be posting on CanadaREIT.com in the seminar section. That is the answer for some of the questions if that current webinar is recorded. Yes, it's recorded, and you can review it later on, more likely within 24 hours on canadaric.com. Okay. So just for information for everyone, I've been receiving a lot of questions, and what I'm going to do it is, primarily I would like everybody to get ready for the microphone, and I will be calling every of the person who has a question, except those which they will mention that they do not have a microphone ready or they didn't set it up. However, at that stage, I would really appreciate that you type entire question at one time, okay? That's for you, because unfortunately there is so many questions popping up, and I cannot follow up and jump from one place to another one. So, Debbie, are you ready for conversation? Okay, you are unmuted. Debbie?
Hi.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
Can you hear me now?
Much better. I can hear you good now, Debbie.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. I was just wondering, I didn't quite catch the difference between an agreement for sale and the regular sale document that everybody uses. How is an agreement for sale different
than a regular purchase?
Yeah.
You mean than just a standard purchase? Okay. So Debbie's question was, how is an agreement for sale different from a regular purchase? So the difference is, Debbie, is that you are taking over their mortgage. So instead of you having to get a new mortgage, like if you were doing a regular purchase, you're going to be going to the bank, qualifying on a mortgage, and buying that property, right? Whether it's through the MLS system or you're doing it on your own. You're going to do a regular sale with a purchase agreement that you're just going out to the bank and you're getting your financing and you're doing your inspection and you're buying that property. Whereas agreement for sale is different in that there's additional sections on your contract, or you will add a different contract to the purchase agreement. So oftentimes it's done that way, where you're doing up a regular purchase agreement, but then the agreement for sale is attached to that. So you're purchasing the property, but you're taking over their mortgage, so you're not putting a new mortgage onto the property. You're taking over the payments on their mortgage. I always say, if I'm making the payments, I make the payments. I don't give them a check, okay? If I'm buying on an agreement for sale, and say I got to pay $2,000 a month to cover their mortgage, I'm taking that $2,000 a month and I'm going to the bank or setting it up that they take an automatic withdrawal out of my account. I am never, ever giving that money to the agreement for sale person, especially, there could be a foreclosure.
Yeah. And is that different from assuming their mortgage?
Yes, it is, because when you assume their mortgage, you have to qualify on that, number one now. You didn't used to, but now you have to qualify when you assume the mortgage. And when you qualify, you will have to personally guarantee it, and you're going to have to qualify on it. Whereas with an agreement for sale, you don't have to qualify, you don't have to personally guarantee. You're just, their mortgage stays in place. They have the title in their name still, and you make the payments on their mortgage. So you see, you're not putting anything new in place. Sorry.
Well, I look forward to your presentation on the 24th.
Thank you, Debbie. I look forward to meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Most welcome. Okay, so Mr. Odie, I hope that's you ready for it. Just give me a second. I will unmute you. Odie, you are on.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Odie.
Good evening.
How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much. Yeah, Jerry, you said that correct. My name is Odie. So with the sandwich lease option, then when you're doing a sandwich lease option, then that means that you have to let the seller know that you are going to do a sandwich lease option. That's the way to do it, right?
Yes.
Because you, like you said before, you have to let the seller, you have to get the seller's permission for you to do the other lease option to the other party.
Normally you do, yes. It shouldn't matter really to the person that is selling you the sandwich lease, except that they may be concerned that you can't close it, right? I mean, the ultimate goal is to sell that property. So if they're concerned about that, then they may, they may not allow you to do that. But yeah, I would clarify that right up front, because for myself personally, if I'm selling on a lease option, in my contracts it's going to state on there that they have to get permission from me in order to sell it to anybody else. So normally it's going to say that in the contract, and you're going to have to get permission. So if that's your plan, it probably be best to disclose that right up front, because if they don't allow you to do that, then and you can't close it, then you've lost your deposit, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess you can also do agreement for sale, and then turn around and then have a lease option, correct?
That's my preference, yeah. Because on agreement for sale, I can do anything I want with it, right? I have control of that property, and then I'm selling it on a lease option, so I'm keeping that control, because they have to get permission from me to be able to do anything with that property. But me, I bought on an agreement for sale, so I don't have to get permission. So yeah, that's my preference.
Oh,
that's
okay.
how I like to do it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to meeting you on 24th. Thank you.
Thanks, Odie. I appreciate it.
Odie, okay, you are muted. And Tim, just give me a second. I have to scroll through all of you guys in order to unmute. Okay. Tim, you ready? You are unmuted.
Hi, Tim.
Tim? Okay, there are so many questions. Oh, okay. Sorry, he has no mic. Guys, for the future, please be kind and set it up or dial by the phone number. That's the best. Or if you don't have a mic, just get it one. It's worth it a while and costs only $25. Okay, so just give me a second. So I have to read it.
Okay.
With my Polish accent, go figure now. Do you guarantee payments during the agreement for sale period? If so, how long do you?
No.
Here there is an answer.
No, I don't. Yeah, sorry, Tim, I don't. What I will agree to, because obviously the people are saying, well, like what if you don't make the payments? How do I know you're making the payments? Because there's those concerns, for obvious reasons. There are going to be people out there that would buy their property and wouldn't make the payments, and then 3 months later they find out about it when a statement of claim is put on their property, and they find out they're in foreclosure. So that's an obvious concern. I don't guarantee payments, but what I do to give them some peace of mind is I will tell them right up front that on day 2, so the first day of the mortgage, I'm going to be making the payment on, or the first day of the month, sorry, and then on the second day of the month, I'm going to fax them a copy of that receipt of payment so that they're comfortable and they know that I'm making that payment. But I mean, if I'm under an agreement for sale, I'm expected to make those payments for the term of that mortgage. That's my deal, right?
Okay. Tim, did that answer the question?
That answers your question.
Okay, waiting for the answer over the chat. And Doug, please, you will be next, okay? So I'm unmuting you now. Okay, Tim is saying thank you for answering the question. Doug, you are online.
Great. Hi, Doug. Doug, are you there? Or?
You're unmuted. Give it a try. Okay, hold a second. I have to scroll it. Okay, so I'm going to read again. How can they sell the property if your name is still on the title? That's the question.
Okay, how can they sell the property if your name is still on the title? So, in other words, I think what you're saying is that if I sell one of my properties on an agreement for sale, then how can they sell it if my name is still on the title? They can, because under an agreement for sale, they're going to secure their agreement for sale on the title, as a caveat on that title, okay? That secures their position on that title, and it gives them the right to be able to sell that property. And that's part of the agreement for sale contract that your lawyer would do up for you when you're selling the property on an agreement for sale. The purchaser's lawyer will do it up, because the purchaser is the one who pays for the expense of the putting the agreement for sale documents into place, and it'll clearly say it on there. So, for instance, if I'm buying it on agreement for sale, on my contract, it will state that I am allowed to and have full rights to be able to sell that property. Now, when I sell that property, it changes from the title is in the original owner. So say there's Jack sells it to me, and I sell it to Mary, then the title is in Jack's name. When I sell it to Mary, it will transfer title from Jack to Mary. And I'm kind of the in-between guy.
Okay. Would you mind
just answer your question?
He has to type it in, and he has a couple more other questions. So what I'm going to do is I will read all his questions at one shot. Okay, so
okay.
I'm worried that if I use agreement for sale and they don't pay, I foreclose. I don't hold the mortgage. What options do I have?
Okay, agreement for sale. Excuse me, it's not actually a foreclosure, but it's similar to a foreclosure. Okay, so for instance, a foreclosure, if the way a foreclosure works is, you know, normally when people fall about 3 months behind, the bank will send it to their lawyers, and their lawyers will put the property into foreclosure, and they're served with a statement of claim. Then, you know, they have to inspect the property, they come over, do an appraisal, it goes to court, and then they're given up to 6 months time period where they can redeem themselves. So that's called a redemption period. They've got 6 months to do that in. With an agreement for sale, it's not that same process if they don't pay, but it's similar. It's lengthy. It's expensive. Okay, a foreclosure proceeding can cost, you know, $8,000–$10,000 to do a full procedure. Can even get higher than that. And so, you know, it's probably going to cost between $5,000 to $10,000 to get them out if they don't go out on their own. Normally, what we would do is we would go to them and say, look, you know, you put us down $10,000 deposit. We're gonna. You obviously can't afford to pay this. You're not going to be able to finalize this. We'll give you back $2,000 to leave the property by the 15th and put it in perfect condition the way it was when you got it. So we'll do something like that in order to get them out, rather than going through the whole process, because then I get them out quick, I put somebody new in there, I pay them, they clean the property, they leave it nice, and you keep it on in good terms as best you can whenever you can, right? Whether you're renting or you're doing something like this. So yeah, so I mean, if they don't pay, it's a much bigger process than a lease option, and that's why I don't normally sell on an agreement for sale. There are reasons why you would want to sell on an agreement for sale. You can make more money in different things, and I will go through that when we go on the seminar. I'll go through why at times maybe I would sell an agreement for sale, but for that purpose, if they don't pay, I'd much rather have a lease option on there, because then boom, they're done. They're automatically a tenant if they're 1 day late, and now I can do an eviction in landlord and tenancy courts, which, you know, 3 weeks later I can have them out.
Perfect.
Was that the whole question there, Yark, or was there more to that question?
Unfortunately, Doc is typing all over the places, so I'm going again. confused. Agreement for sale,
Okay.
you don't own, but you are in the control.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay. Okay. Yes. You and I guess that's the short answer. You do own it in a sense. You and you have the right, contractual right, to be able to do whatever you want with that property. And you know, guys, I mean, think of it this way. I specialize in foreclosures. You look at foreclosures. Now, the reason that up front we're going to do a power of attorney is because if somebody is in foreclosure and you take over their property, do you think 3 years from now when that term comes up you're going to be able to find them anywhere? Not a chance, okay? And when they're in foreclosure, they will sign just about anything to get out of that situation that they're in. So it's at that time that I get a power of attorney signed, which gives me full contractual right to sign on behalf of them for the mortgage on that property, or for that property in general, which means I'm going to sell. If I want to list this property on the MLS 2.5 years from now, I can do that. I'm contractually able to sign on the dotted line to list that property even though the title is in their name. And that is the difference with agreement for sale versus lease option, is a lease option, you don't have that kind of control. And when we go through at the end of the month during the seminar, I'll go through those contracts and stuff with you as well, and I'll show you how that works with the agreement for sale.
Okay, looks like there's no more question. And Doc, if you have any follow-up suggestion, questions, please type it in, okay? So, Mr. Richard.
Okay.
Richard, you're online.
Hi, Richard.
Hello, Madeline.
How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. Great to hear your presentation, and
Thank you.
just look forward to some more information as we continue through the mentoring program. I actually just typed in a question about seeing, getting the, getting a copy of the presentation. So
Absolutely.
I don't have anything more specific than that.
Well, thank you. Richard's taking my next mentorship program that's starting in the beginning of March. So thank you, Richard, for coming on. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I look forward to connecting with you more.
Great. Thank you. Me too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
That was quick.
Yeah.
Okay, there is
That
a
was an easy
question.
question.
It won't be so easy.
They get tougher, eh?
Yeah, they're getting tougher. Okay, so Myrna, what percentage of the buyers qualify at the end of their terms to buy you out?
You know what, Myrna, is I can't give you an exact answer on that, but what I can tell you is the higher the deposit that you get them to put up front, and the more qualifying you do them up front, the better the chance they are going to qualify in the end, right? So, you know, what I recommend is, I know people that do lease options for next to nothing as far as deposits go. Not so much agreement for sale, but I know, you know, several people that will take, you know, $1,000 or $2,000 down. That's not the way I do things. My goal is to have these people purchase that property. Not to say it isn't beneficial if they don't, because if they don't purchase the property, I keep their deposit, right? I may have made additional funds over the term, the life of it, because with the, say I'm selling on a lease option, you know, maybe expenses are $1,500 a month, maybe I'm charging them $2,000 a month, so I'm making $500 a month cash flow, and then maybe they put down a $10,000 deposit, and so, you know, maybe for, you know, 2 years they paid that to me. That was a benefit to me. Now maybe the property is worth more. If they don't follow through, I keep their deposit, I keep their cash flow, and I find somebody else to do exactly the same thing, so then I can get another $10,000 deposit and $500 a month cash flow, because I don't have to give that deposit back, right? So not to say it's not beneficial if they don't follow through, but my ultimate goal is to sell that property, and I'm not bringing people into the house to, you know, to not move a property to them eventually. So So in saying that, what I do is I ask for a stronger deposit. I would never, ever do anything on $1,000 or $2,000 deposit. I'm looking probably a minimum of, depending on the property and where it's located. So for instance, if it was in a tougher neighborhood, low-income neighborhood condo, I might ask for $5,000. And it might be hard to find somebody that's got $5,000 in that area. If I'm, if I've got, a single-family home in a inner city neighborhood in Calgary, I'm going to be looking for a minimum $10,000 down. And what I'm normally looking for is the amount, at least the amount that I'm buying it for. So if I'm having to put $10,000 down, you see, because the way I teach it is, if I'm buying it on an agreement for sale, normally I am trying to, I'm buying it on an agreement for sale. I'm giving myself a certain amount of time before I remove conditions on that. Okay. During that time period, say I give myself 3 weeks, I'm out there finding a lease option tenant to come into that property. Okay. So I'm giving myself that time in order. So if I'm putting $10,000 down to that guy when I'm buying it, then in that 3 weeks, I'm trying to find a lease option tenant that's going to give me $10,000 minimum, so I can put that on the money that I owe to buy it. But yeah, no, I guess, the answer to your question, there's no real answer to that. I can tell you on lease options, when you sell on lease options, there's several people that never follow through. But the best chance to get them to follow through is to qualify them. Set them up with your mortgage broker. Have a good mortgage broker that you work with, that you've got a great relationship with. I have one that she's awesome, okay, and she'll do any of the background work for me. I don't have to do it, right? I'm just sending them to her, and then she checks them out, and then she'll come back to me and say, you know what, if they do, if they make X amount of payments on this, set them up with this credit card, because there's credit cards out there where you can put $200 down and they'll give you a credit card. So even somebody who's in bankruptcy can get a credit card if they put the money down, right? So they'll tell them, okay, you know what, get this credit card, then make your payments on it, use it, even if you only put $10 a month in it, use it and pay it every single month to build your credit. And they'll do different things like that to help them build that credit. So I guess, the better you set things up in advance, the more chance they're going to close. And the higher amount of money they put down on that property, the better chance they're going to close. Because I'm not going to go and put $10,000 down on a property if I don't think I can close it, right? I don't want to lose that money unless I'm, very, very wealthy, and $10,000 means nothing to me. At which case, I would just buy the property myself anyways, right? So hopefully that helps.
Okay. So next question is from Don. Hey, Don, you're online. Yes.
Okay. Hi, Don.
Don. I guess no mic. Okay, so the question is more likely dedicated about to me. So what is the membership cost in Canada, in the Canada REIC? Go find it out. Nothing, to be honest with you, at this moment. The goal is very, very, very basic. Is we would like to allow people which they are thinking about real estate investors to build their network based on the same credentials, criteria like LinkedIn, Facebook for real estate investors. Yes, we understand that there's nothing for free. So what we are doing is very, very simple. We are making due diligence on mentors, educators, and we cooperate with them in order to provide the best value for you guys. So at this moment there is no membership, and we are planning not to charge. We will provide possibility to have a $50 a month, and you will be having possibility to analyze deals with the mentors. Simple as that. So overall it's free. Okay?
Yeah, so go on, guys, and sign up for sure.
Sure, definitely. Now, Oscar. I think the already question was answered, but I'm going to unmute you, Oscar.
Hi, Oscar.
Hold a second.
Okay.
Oscar, are you online?
Hello? Hello, hi Madeline.
Hi Oscar, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, like I just had a few questions. You know, I guess an agreement for sale would be like a purchase contract where you need a down payment. Is that correct?
Yes. It's a purchase contract, but it's got additional terms in that contract, or it's an additional contract that's attached, an attachment to the purchase contract.
Okay,
and yes,
so
yes, you normally have to put money down. Not necessarily though. There are times right now where you can find a property. Okay, so say you find a property on a for sale by owner site. Okay, now some of the people on for sale by owner sites right now are listed on the for sale by owner site because they can't afford to sell through a realtor. Okay, so say that you find a property that was $300,000. Okay, that's the value of it, and the mortgage on it is $310,000. Well, those people, if they're anxious to get out of that for any reason, you can write that deal without putting any money down. You take over their mortgage because you're paying more for it than it's even worth right now, right? So there is a chance. There is, you know, usually you have to put something down, but there are situations where you don't.
okay, so I mean, basically, you would have to put like, you know, at least $100 or something just to make it a bindable agreement, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, you always have to put something down, but.
And the last thing would be, like, you know, one of the options that you put there when you buy or sell properties, you said that you sometimes ask for a carry, like the seller to carry the mortgage as a vendor take-back.
Yeah.
Now, is that just like an agreement for sale? Because, I mean, you're asking them to carry the mortgage as well as the down payment, per se.
Well, it's similar, right? I mean, you could do that in a way where you do an agreement for sale on the first mortgage, and then they carry some of the balance. So, for instance, if there's a first mortgage of $200,000, you could do an agreement, and the property's worth $300,000. You could do an agreement for sale on that $200,000 and ask them to carry more. You know, so that maybe you get in with $20,000 down or something, and they carry $80,000. There is a way of doing that. It's a little more extensive than I can get into today, so I will teach that at the end of the month. But yeah, or if, say they have no mortgage, maybe they have no mortgage and their property's free and clear, they might very well be willing to make a, you know, get additional income every month, right? So, you know, so you pay them, you know, maybe interest only, maybe principal and or interest. It depends what kind of deal you structure with them. But then they actually are in first position as the first mortgage holder. They own the mortgage.
Awesome.
You buy the property from them, so you're buying the property from them. So title would go into your name, but they're going to carry the first mortgage, so they're on title just like the bank would be if the bank was putting a mortgage on it.
Okay,
so it's
sounds
a little bit
good.
different. Yeah, it's a little bit different. You still probably, you may not have to qualify and stuff on it, but the property would be in your name. But it's kind of harder to find that because you have to find something where they've got equity in it or they have no mortgage on it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Oscar.
Oscar, you muted. And Gregory, hold a second. Gregory, you are unmuted.
Hi, Greg.
Well, okay, another one, no microphone. Okay, can we get samples of the forms to use?
Yes, I will be going through the contracts at the seminar on the 24th. So I'll be going through that then and providing that.
Okay. So it looks like you have to show up. Okay. So I know Myrna, she has no microphone, so I will read it. Okay. It's more likely related to agreement for sale and U.S. investing. Is the agreement for sale I know that you are investing in the United States, so it won't be a question which won't be sufficient and good. So is the agreement for sale the same as subject to in the U.S.?
Yes, it's similar. It's a similar process. There are a few things that are different, but yeah, it's a similar process, just different wording.
Okay.
Subject to, you're buying subject to, you know, but they're keeping that mortgage in place. So yeah, it's similar process. There are some differences, but similar idea.
So, if so, what about the due on sale clause?
Okay, the due on sale clause. Okay, my lawyer that I've spoken to about this has never seen an issue with the due on sale clause. I mean, rightly, the bank could call the mortgage if they chose to, but they have never seen an issue where the bank has done that, and buying on an agreement for sale doesn't seem to bother the bank as long as you continue making the payments.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers that.
Hopefully, please, Myrna, please type it if you have any follow-up questions, and then we will see how we can answer. Mika, you're next. Okay, so please allow me to just find you among other guys. Okay. Hello, can you hear us? Mika Case. Hello. Okay. Unfortunately, I have to read again. Does agreement for sale override the mortgage conditions if it is a non-transferable mortgage? Does the agreement for sale override the mortgage conditions if it is a non-transferable mortgage?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. When you take over that mortgage on an agreement for sale, you are taking over the exact same terms that exist in that mortgage. So you're not changing anything on that mortgage. You're simply securing a caveat onto title that you're basically taking over that mortgage on an agreement for sale, as far as the payments and that sort of thing. But other than that, everything stays in the other person's name, the seller's name, and all of the existing terms stay into place.
Okay. If you have a follow-up,
that answers the question.
Well, we'll see. Let me see. There's no follow-up. And Myrna, she's saying, thank you very much for the questions concerning the subject too. So
thank you, Myrna. Thank you for asking. Appreciate that.
Okay. And Tony, I don't have a mic, of course, so I have to read again. Please talk about how much down payment of lease to own is ideal to collect for the agreement for sale deal.
Well, on a lease option, I would normally, if I'm selling a property of mine on a lease option, I normally won't expect as much money down as I would on an agreement for sale. And the reason being is because if I'm doing it on a lease option, if I'm keeping that control in my hands, like I said. So if for some reason they don't make the payments, then I can immediately make them into a tenant and get them out, right? Versus an agreement for sale, where it's going to be a lot more costly procedure if they don't make those payments. So I'm going to expect, if I'm giving them control of my property, I'm going to expect a lot more money down. So, you know, like I said, a lease option, I might be more flexible. I might go anywhere from $3,000 and up. depending on which area and the property. With an agreement for sale, I'm not likely to sell anything I own on an agreement for sale for less than $10,000.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers that.
Yes, we have a couple questions which are just overlapping with each other. Unfortunately, we have so many questions, so I prefer to answer, even twice or three times. That will be repetition, but that's perfectly fine because everybody can hear again. So that's perfectly fine. Tony, are you
listening to me? But
you cannot be ever tired of listening to you. Come on, please. No.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so Vishal, I hope you have a microphone up and ready because I'm unmuting you at this moment. Hello?
Hello, hi. Thanks, Madeline, for taking our questions and answering so many things, and for all the information that you have given to us.
You're welcome.
I had a question on the. Thank you. I had a question on my mind. Basically, what are the ways we are making money with the AFS? And it's depending on the sale that we'll be making of the house, or is there any other way in the process that we are making money? I mean, in cash flow and yeah.
On an agreement for sale? You mean if you're selling
Yes.
on an agreement for sale? Yes. Okay. So say that I'm selling on an agreement for sale, and this is usually the only way I'll sell on an agreement for sale is if I'm going to make really good money off it, and it makes sense to do it that way. So for instance, say that I am buying a property, or I bought a property, I'm selling it on an agreement for sale. I'm selling it for $350,000. Say that I picked up that property on an agreement for sale for $300,000. Okay, these are the kind of deals you're looking for on, with foreclosures and undervalued properties. So I buy this property for $300,000. Say that it was in foreclosure. I hope you guys can follow along with this example, and please, stop me if you're not quite sure what I'm talking about. But if I'm buying this property on an agreement for sale from somebody that's in foreclosure, I'm taking it over for what's owing on it, okay, because the property itself is $300,000 mortgage, and maybe let's say it's worth $330,000, okay? Now, say that they're behind, and I have to catch up their legals and their arrears on that property to take it out of foreclosure, okay? So I'm taking over their existing mortgage of $300,000. For example's sake, let's say it's at 4%. I'm putting down, say, $10,000 to take it out of foreclosure. So I'm paying $310,000. The property is worth $330,000. Okay. Now, because I'm selling it on an agreement for sale, I can bump that price up. Okay, because I'm bringing value to the table that the guy I'm selling it to doesn't have to qualify on a mortgage and doesn't have to personally guarantee anything. So I'm bringing him a property. Say it's worth $330,000, and I'm going to sell it to him for $350,000. And I've got 3-year term on that mortgage, okay, on the existing mortgage. What I'm going to do if I sell it to him on an agreement for sale, if my first mortgage is $300,000 at 4%, I'm going to get him to put down $20,000. Okay, so he puts down $20,000, 10 of which I can put in my pocket, and the other 10 I pay the legals and arrears that mortgage, I'm buying from somebody in foreclosure. I have to pay that to get it out of foreclosure, right? So I'm pocketing $10,000 because it's non-refundable, and I'm taking $10,000 and I'm paying that out of foreclosure. Okay. Now, based on that, there's $330,000 that I'm carrying for the guy because he's buying it for $350,000. He's putting down $330,000 that he still owes me. So I'm not going to tell him. It doesn't matter to him when I'm selling. It does not matter to him about my first mortgage on there. What matters to him is what he has to pay. So I'm going to tell him, I am going to carry you on an agreement for sale or a wrap mortgage. I'm going to carry you $330,000 at 7%, 7.5%, 8%. In the States right now, I'm doing them at 8.5%. Okay? Now, because they can't qualify on a mortgage, they're happy to do that, right? So you see what's happening on my end, though, is I've got this first mortgage in place that I'm paying 4% on. So maybe for number's sake, let's say I'm paying $1,500 a month on that mortgage, okay? But I'm making 7% on it. So I'm paying 4% to the bank, but I'm making 7 or 8% on it, whatever deal I come to with him. So I'm making an interest off the bank's money. Then I've got another $30,000 that I never put into that property, right? I'm carrying $30,000, but I got it under market in a foreclosure, so I never put that money in there. But I'm making 10%, or I'm making 7 or 8% off that $30,000 that I never even put in. So that's a way that you can sell under agreement for sale. That's when it's worth it, because the guy has put down 20 grand. Chances of him walking and never qualifying are slim. And you know, I can make money off the bank's money, off money I never put in, and you know, so I'm making good cash flow off it, and able to structure it, making a, you know, basically a $40,000 profit in the end. And I know that's a lot to take in, guys. You know, I teach this over weeks in my mentorship program, so I know it's a lot to take in one sitting. So I hope that helps to explain it a little bit of a way that you can, you know, make good money off of selling on an agreement for sale.
Vishal, if you have a question.
Madeline, that was yeah, that was a good answer, and I think I got grasped most of the points. Thanks very much for the answer.
Thank you.
Sorry, Vishal, I had to mute you during the time because you had some background noises, so I hope you forgive me about that. Mike, you're next. Just go, let me find Mike. Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect,
Hi,
good.
Mike.
Yeah, hi. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey, my question is, does agreement for sale work with larger properties, like multifamily properties?
I haven't done it with multifamily properties, but you know, I'm willing to bet that there is definite opportunity with that right now. And actually, I can think of a few deals off the top of my head that would work that way.
I'm just thinking with the multiple tenants in there,
yeah.
how that would work.
Well, it wouldn't really change anything because you look at it as one box, right? And now, in saying that I haven't done it that way, that's actually I'm selling some of my own properties right now because we're reinvesting into the States, and some of mine are, you know, are multi, like they're 6 or whatever, right? Absolutely, it would work. And in this market, I'm telling you, I did a lot of flipping commercial over the years when the boom was on there, and so many people were overbuying, and you know, especially in the multifamily, and you know, with the intention, okay, we're just gonna buy this building, and we're going to convert it, and you know, we know we're negative, you know, $30,000 a month, but that's okay because we're going to convert. We're going to sell all the units within, you know, 6 months, a year, so we're counting for that up front. And then the market changed, and of course, we all know conversion, you know, isn't. It's just not the market for conversion right now. So what happens is, you know, there's lots of people. I know several multis that have actually gone into foreclosure and whatnot because of that, because, you know, they're having to continue carrying this huge amount of debt that wasn't counted for and wasn't in their original exit strategy. So absolutely, if you can find them.
Madeline, are you talking about 5 units or less, or 6 or plus?
No, I'm talking about big multifamilies. Yeah, I was referring solely to mine, that may be something I will look at doing, and I've spoken to my partners about recently, is doing it that way. But no, I'm talking about large multifamily. I'm talking about you know, basically 20 and up. But most of them that I've seen go into foreclosure and whatnot are 100 and up, and I am aware of a couple right now that yeah, we could probably structure an agreement for sale on them, you know, because now, I know that
if you buy them on agreement for sale, would you have to implement a master lease option if you're then leasing them out?
Well, if you're You're just renting them. You're just renting them to tenants like you normally do on a. No, you wouldn't have to. You'd take control of that property, and you'd be overseeing management. You'd be paying all the bills. You'd be paying the mortgage. You'd be collecting all the rents. You'd do everything.
Okay.
And you know, you'd have to put down a larger amount of money. I mean, you're not going to get in with you know, $10,000. You're going to be putting down a bigger amount of money. But you know, like for instance, I've got a few in Edmonton that I know of, friends of mine that are looking to get out of them. And the problem is they're extremely poorly managed, right? Because they don't live in Edmonton. They live in other provinces, so they're not able to oversee the management. So I've got one in Calgary and a couple in Edmonton, 3 in Edmonton, I think. And yeah, that they're huge opportunity to set that up. What was your name again, sorry?
Mike.
Mike.
Mike? So yeah, Mike, if you want to email me about that, if you have interest in that, feel free. I can put you in touch with them, and you know, they're willing to get creative, I know that. So it's just a matter of running the numbers and make sure it works for you, right? The only thing you don't want to do is get yourself in the same trouble they're in. But a lot of the problem with these buildings is they're poorly managed because they're managing from afar, right? And you know, in our market, it's hard to do that. You know, it's hard to find good managers, right? So yeah.
Hey, thanks very much.
Okay, you're very welcome. Thanks, Mike.
Wow. Can I ask you to put me in the list too?
Absolutely, Yarrick. No problem.
Here we go. Tim.
You're in already.
Hold a second. Tim. Tim.
Okay.
Tim, you're on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, Tim.
Hi there, can you hear me all right?
Yep, I hear you great.
Okay, great. I had 2 questions.
Okay.
First of all, can you basically get an agreement for sale with the vendor and then basically, if it's a really good deal, say it's a foreclosure, mark that up and then sell that to another investor?
Absolutely.
Rather than a buyer necessarily, that's a regular buyer that wants to live in that house?
And you know what? That's what I specialized in, Tim. Sorry, that's exactly what I specialized in because I got things under contract in foreclosure. That's what I marketed, right? That was kind of my thing. So I went out and marketed. I brought the deals in. I signed up the contracts, and then I sold them to other investors. So I either sell on, it's called a simultaneous close, where you're closing, which is different when you're doing an agreement for sale. You're going to have to probably sell on an assignment, and so what you're doing is I mean, it's a beautiful business doing that, okay, beautiful business, because you're providing to investors what they can't do on their own, and most of them don't know how to do this. So that was my specialty. What I would do is I would sign it up, get it all, you know, get it all done, signed, sealed, and delivered under contract, and then I would bring in an investor to purchase that paper from me on an assignment. So maybe I charge them a $10,000 fee, sell them the paper, and off they go. I also did a lot of simultaneous closes, but that you wouldn't be able to do with an agreement for sale. You'd more have to do an assignment with an agreement for sale. But there's
more
huge
like an
business
auction
in that. Yeah, that's where I made most of.
Okay.
That's where I made most of my
perfect.
money.
That
was
my first question. So the next question was, how do you? What's your process? This might be a long question to answer, but how do you find you know, tenant buyers to get them in, even whether they're, you know, qualified or not? I know you talk to mortgage agents and that you'd have, you know, them do the qualification for you, but how do you get in touch with those people that, you know, can't qualify on their own typically? What's your strategy for getting those people coming to you?
Well, you want to advertise, right? So you advertise on Kijiji. You can advertise on for sale by owner sites. You know, anywhere that somebody might be looking for property. Even on, you know, I use different, you know, all of my my rentals. I advertise on rental sites, right? I'm sure you've heard of Home Rent and Rent Faster and these ones. So I'll go on there and I will advertise on there that, you know, you can rent this place or you can buy it with X amount of deposit, right, on a rent-to-own basis. So yeah, just anywhere you can. You know, if I'm there is you will get some success advertising in the newspaper for rent-to-own. I never advertise in the newspaper except in Red Deer, I guess. But other than that, in general, I never advertise in the newspaper for renters. But I do get response for lease rent-to-own. You always want to use rent-to-own when you're advertising, not lease option, because most people don't understand what that is unless you're in the business, right? But most people do understand rent-to-own. Yeah, they mostly understand rent to own. So just anywhere, I just advertise it. I just shoot it out as much as I can. I over the years I've built up my investor list as well. So that's something I teach as well, is how to build up your investor list so that you can also shoot it out to those people, right? Because there's investors looking for lease options too, right? Because they can't qualify, but they have cash in order to do it. And if you can bring somebody a deal where they don't have to put down, as investors, we have to put down 20%, goes without saying, right? So if you can bring somebody a deal where they don't have to put down 20% and they don't have to qualify on a mortgage, huge market for that. Huge.
Okay, great.
You can also advertise on Canada REIC. Lots of people looking on there, right?
Great.
And growing.
Every day, right, Yar?
Yeah, exactly. So
I look forward to seeing you on the 24th. Thanks very much.
I look forward to meeting you. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much. You are muted, Tim. Okay. Travis, you are on. Travis? Okay, I think my mic works. Doesn't look like, Travis. Okay. I'll give you a couple seconds to try it. No, we cannot hear you, Travis. Okay, why don't you try it and then I'll put you back. Okay, it doesn't work. So would you like me to read it, the question? Okay, I'm going to read it. Had Madeleine, that was one, and if you have an unconditional contract and the seller decides they don't want to sell, will you play hardball, and place the caveat on the title forcing them to close in that agreement for sale deal? Thank you.
Depends. How much equity am I getting on the deal? The last thing I want to bother wasting my time and energy on is a lawsuit. So, for me to go that direction, it's like anything. Like I've put many properties under contract that were in foreclosure too, and that's a business in itself that people will the next day go and put on a contract with somebody else. So I always look at everything individually, every situation. I had one that I knew I was getting a lot of equity, and yeah, I forced the issue and brought my lawyer in, and they eventually turned around and sold it to me. And I will force the issue if I'm if I stand to gain a lot on it. But it's dependent on the situation. It's dependent on the people I'm dealing with. And like I say, the last thing I want to do is move forward with a lawsuit. If it's a foreclosure, you're not going to have time to move forward with a lawsuit. By the time you've gone through with your lawsuit, the property is going to be gone anyways, and the bank will have taken it over, and so then there's no point. So it really depends on the deal that I'm working on and on the whole situation and how much equity I'm gaining, whether or not it's worth to spend months and thousands of dollars on doing that or not. So normally I'd say I'm going to force the issue with my lawyer as far as I can. If I'm gaining equity and stuff on it, it's a good deal and I have good plans for it. But I'm probably not going to take the extra step to go into a lawsuit.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, to me that it's wasting my energy, right? In that time, I could have found another deal and wrote another deal to somebody else and made the same money.
Okay, great. Really good answer. Helps me a lot. You're welcome. Okay,
yeah,
Odi.
You're welcome.
Odi, you are next. Please allow me to find you first. Okay, and Odi, you are online, and I would like to just mention there is a couple more questions. If you have any questions, please type it in, or we will finish very soon. Okay, Odi, you are on.
Hello again.
Hi, Odi.
Hello.
Hi. I can hear you.
So I got three more questions actually. So first, do you recommend doing agreement for sale when the house is with a realtor, if it's on the listing?
If you can set it up that way. It's harder to do it through a realtor because many realtors won't understand what it is that you're trying to do. Okay, you're going to need to be working with a realtor that is creative, that's probably an investor themselves, and really understands how investors work and how you can do different things creative. They have to be able to explain that well to the people that are buying or selling the property, right? The other thing is, through a realtor, you're going to be covering the realtor's fees. So, you know, it may be a higher chance of having to put a high deposit down. You know, if they've hired the realtor, if they've hired the realtor, it means that there's enough funds in that property for them to be able to pay the realtor, right? So regardless, you're going to have to pay the realtor. So for sure, you're going to have $15,000 minimum if it's a $300,000 property that's going to go to the realtor, and then the people might want more money on top of that. So it's a tougher deal through the realtors, but in saying that, it can still happen. You know, I'm selling some of my stuff on that, and I've got great realtors that I work with, you know, on different levels, and you know, they're investors themselves, and they understand totally what I'm talking about, so they can market it that way when I'm selling. If I'm buying, hopefully I'm buying from a realtor that really understands how that works and can really explain the situation to the seller, so that the seller feels comfortable in that. So it's just adding another layer, right? And hoping that you're working with somebody that understands creative investing and how you can put that deal together still. So it's possible. Yep, it's possible.
Okay, great. Thanks. So next question here. So the tenant buyer, can the tenant, let's say I go turn around and do a lease option, can the tenant buyer renovate the property to increase
Absolutely.
the value or whatever they want with it?
Oh, they can
so
renovate
they have
it for
that.
sure. We want them
okay.
to do that. Yeah, we want them to do that. I mean, it's their property in the sense that they have the option to buy. So they have to pay for maintenance and stuff on the property too, right? So you don't, when you're lease optioning a property out, you are not responsible for maintenance. Now, I mean, if their furnace blew 3 months in, I'm going to cover that, right? But if, you know, if a year in the hot water tank goes, they're responsible for the maintenance on that property. And if they want to go in and they want to, like I sell houses in the States, it's kind of like a lease option how I sell them out. It's a little bit different. That's a whole other discussion, but it's a more secure type of scenario. But yeah, I mean, these people go in, they change carpets out. They want carpets in that room or whatever instead of lino. So they go in and they change carpets and they paint it nice and they do different things. And yeah, it raises the value and it's great. So yeah, that's a major benefit. For sure.
Okay, great. Now, one last thing here. Now, so does the seller, let's say a seller who's selling it on agreement for sale, do they lose control of the property? Let's say if there's any, you know, structural damage to it, does the seller don't have to do anything to fix that problem? You know,
well, not
does that make sense?
You mean if they leave the property in bad condition and they don't follow through? Is that what you're referring to, or?
No. Well, let's just say, okay. I'll just rephrase that. Do you recommend doing a home inspection before going into agreement for sale?
Yes. I always do a home inspection. You know, even if I'm selling to somebody, I'm doing a home inspection because. You know, sometimes, you know, I didn't always used to, guys. I didn't always used to, and I kind of learned my lesson that now the inspector I use is not some of these inspectors that they go in and they inspect a house so thoroughly that you will never buy a house for your lifetime. I've dealt with some inspectors like that. I don't need to know all of the information. I need to deal with an inspector that understands real estate investing, and I do. I deal with a great inspector who will assess the tenants when he goes in for me. He'll assess he'll tell me that, they keep their property up nice. He'll tell me, if there's a problem with the roof or the windows or major expense. But I don't need him to go in and tell me every little tiny detail. I know I'm going to have to put some money into that property usually and that sort of thing. So, I guess that's my, I do inspect. Mostly the reason I inspect is because one time I bought a property and I was assuming the mortgage without qualifying. It was back in the day when you could do that. And when I did that, I didn't do an inspection, and I resold the property to someone else, okay, this lady. And anyways, they took some of the walls out downstairs. I was reselling it. It was all signed up. She had a $5,000 deposit. Everything was good to go. When you're doing that, you're counting the money before the deal's closed, So anyways, I had, what happened was this lady, she, I don't know, some walls got taken out or something. I can't remember how it all happened. It was maybe 6 years ago or so. And anyways, it turned out that the property was a grow-up. And I'm not afraid of grow-ups. It can be a very easy fix, and you can make good money off them, but you have to be careful with them, right? So, there was lots of mold. So we had to get rid of the mold. So we went in there, tore out all the walls in the basement, got rid of all the mold. Well, this woman, she's a bit of a crazy woman. She went to every single neighbor 2 blocks down and complained about us, and she just raised, it was unbelievable. And that, I gave it back to her. I gave her money back, and I said, just please go. And even after I gave her money back, she went to all of the neighbors and still continued to complain, and everything was bad. So I learned my lesson in that I never want to get myself into a situation that I don't know ahead what I'm in for. So it doesn't matter how much money I'm going to make off the deal. I want to know what the situation is up front. So yeah, I usually do an inspection. And like I said, it may not be from one of the big inspecting companies that are gonna go through every nook and cranny and convince me not to buy. It's gonna be somebody that I trust their knowledge, and that they are gonna go in and say, yeah, well, there's this and this with it, but looks like good property to me, right? And at least I know that I'm not gonna find out, or my buyer isn't gonna find out. And in saying that, I may not pay for that inspection, but what I will do is if I'm selling it to somebody, I'll say, I'd like you to get it inspected, send your inspector over there and get them to pay for it.
Okay. That was my follow-up question, if you were going to go and cover that inspections fee, but you answered that. Perfect. Thank you so much, Madeline.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Shane, no microphone, sorry. So there's a couple questions from Shane. There is, and then Don and Rob and Carl, and that's it. Okay, so.
Okay.
It is easy to find financing on rent-to-own options, and are most institutions and CMHC on site with the lease options? So simply saying, how easy is to finance the lease-to-own deals?
This is from Shane?
Shane, yes.
Shane, okay. Shane, I'm assuming that you're meaning eventually when the tenants are going to qualify. That's what I'm assuming that you're meaning. So if I'm incorrect in that, please
yes.
Send Yarrick a message. He said yes. Okay, good. Okay, so you know what? It's fine, and the reason that it's fine is because you have to structure your lease option proper in the beginning. If you don't structure your lease option proper, it won't be fine. This is a whole discussion, and I teach a couple classes on this, but I'll give you the quick response on it. Is if you've got a lease option tenant that you're selling to, and they go in there and they put down, say, a $10,000 deposit. So they put down $10,000. How I structure mine is, maybe they're paying, say, $1,500 a month, and then anything over and above. So that's rent. That's rent. Okay, their deposit's $10,000. Their rent is $1,500. I will often give them the option to, if they bump up that payment, I will double it off the purchase price of the property. Okay? You cannot say I'll double it as your deposit. So in other words, if they've got $1,500 and then they've got $200, say they've got $200 over and above the $1,500, okay, that they're paying per month. Okay, that's towards their deposit. So over 2 years, they're going to put down another $4,800. So instead of 10, they've got another $4,800, so they're $14,800. To encourage them to do that, because cash is king, guys. Get the cash up front if you can. There's a strong possibility these people are never going to close, okay? So if they don't close, you want to get cash up front, okay, in cash flow. So to make this all worth your while, right? So they're paying $200 additional. I'm agreeing to double that. Say I'm selling the property to them for $300,000. Okay, so over the life of the 2 years before they qualify, they've got $4,800 extra that they're paying, which means I'm going to take $4,800 off the purchase price. I'm not saying that I'm going to double their deposit of $4,800 and make it, well, would that be $96,000? I'm not doing that. Okay, you're not allowed to do that. The other thing you have to do is you have to set it up with 2 separate checks. So you've got one check for rent, $1,500, and $200 check per month going in as a deposit. It has to be set up that way. If you do not do 2 separate checks and you only do it in one check, so they give you a check every month for $1,700, the bank will not count that as deposit money. So it's things like this that you need to know up front. If you do it up front, I have not had a problem with the bank qualifying. If they can qualify, I mean they're qualifying, right, on a new mortgage, so they're qualifying the mortgage. If they qualify, and then I show the bank that yes, they paid me $10,000 plus $4,800 in additional checks throughout the year, so they've got $14,800, and as long as that's enough of a deposit, you're good to go. You know, there shouldn't be a problem with that.
Okay, did that answer that
However
question?
they qualify. Okay.
Okay, Shane. Thank you. Thanks. There is a follow-up question from Shane, and if you don't mind, I will answer that, because both of us, we were on Mr. Naftaj's presentation, right, about RSP, right?
Okay.
You remember that. So the question is exactly what we covered already before. How do you use RSP money for the initial down payment, lease option money, right? So Shane, you can go to the canadareic.com, you go to group seminars, and there is a seminar which was covered by Mr. Naftaj and Hoke from Pre-Canada, Hidden Profits in RSP, and how let the taxman pay your down payment. So that will answer your question in and out, okay? Perfect. So that's the answer for following this question.
Great.
Shane, okay, what if the homeowner dies and you are doing a sandwich lease option that you sold to a tenant buyer? What happens if the estate tries to sell the home on you?
Okay, well, see, there's a good example where if it's under an agreement for sale, I mean, you're going to have all your contracts in place, right? So, I mean, the lawyers are going to get involved and it's going to get a little bit stickier, but under agreement for sale, you have full rights to that property, and you're able to sign on behalf of that property. So you're going to have a lot stronger position than you are on a lease option. In saying that, you put a deposit down, you're making your payments, you bring your lawyer in, and your lawyer would have to go to town for you on that. I've never ever had that situation. So I have had people where I had their properties under contract and they passed, but a different situation. It wasn't closed yet. So that would be what I'd say. Hopefully that helps. That's kind of a lawyer question, I guess, more so than myself.
Okay, just Shane mentioned that he's just curious, right? So.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Good question.
Okay, so Don, I don't see your confirmations if you have a microphone. Shane saying thank you very much for information. Don.
Thank you.
Do you have a microphone? Okay, I will wait for answer from Don and Mr. Rob. Sorry, no mic. Go figure. And that's very similar questions to the previous questions, but we would like to answer. Okay. What conditions do you put on your agreement for sale?
Conditions that I put on my agreement for sale? Well, I'll put, you're saying in order to tie it up for a certain amount of time while I look for another buyer. I'm assuming that's what you mean. So in other words, if I've got a condition period, and during that condition period I'm tying it up say, for 3 weeks, and I'm trying to hold it over while I find, say, a lease option buyer or something like that. The conditions that I would put on there, number one, I always will put on subject to lawyer's approval. Always. Okay. You sometimes can't get away with that so much if you're buying something off the MLS, but you sure can when you're buying something, from somebody in foreclosure or somebody that's having a hard time selling their property or FSBO, that sort of thing. So, yeah, so I put that on. I put inspection on. If they ask you, well, what do you need? Because you're not. I understand why you're asking that question, because you're not putting financing on there, right? But if they ask you, well, what do you need to tie up my property for 3 weeks? This is what you say. I'm not sure. I work with joint venture partners. I'm not sure which partner I'm bringing into the deal yet, and I have to analyze the numbers and everything, make sure everything's going to work, and decide which partner I'm bringing in, have my lawyer take a look at it, make sure we can make it work. So I need a bit of time. That's it.
Perfect.
Okay.
So Don is asking, and he doesn't have the mic, so that will be
okay.
Rob. Perfect, thank you. That's for previous question.
Great.
Okay, so that question is dedicated again to me. So when is the next training after February 24th? I'm out of the country from February 21st to March 17th. Don, it's very simple. We're running our seminars. That's not the training. The seminars, networking seminars, educational seminars, and we are running every last Thursday of each month. Additionally to that, we are getting into that kind of mindset that every Thursday is a webinar online, and we're trying to achieve that goal. And when you will be participating in the Serious VIP membership, we will be holding those events on Tuesdays, more likely second and the fourth Tuesday of each month. Okay? Now, Carl, just let me find you, Carl. You have to know alphabet. Carl, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you, Carl.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I have 2 questions, Madeline.
Okay.
The first one, you said the similarities between the two lease option and AFS is that you eventually do have to qualify, or did I get that wrong?
Yes,
you
do.
You didn't have to qualify if you're doing agreement for sale.
Well, I mean, the plan is that you're going to eventually have to qualify. There is opportunity that if you do a power of attorney up front and you structure it into your initial agreement, like your initial contract, that you may be able to renew the mortgage when it comes time to renew. But there's no guarantees with that, right? So you may be able to renew it, and if you can, great, maybe you can renew for another 5-year term, and then that's great, right? Maybe you're only planning on holding for 5 years, and you never, ever have to qualify on a mortgage. So there is opportunity for you to do that. But, in general, a lot of times people are having to qualify, within that 3-year period, and a lot of times people don't know to structure that up front and to do the power of attorney and everything up front so that they're preparing for that when that event comes, right?
Yeah.
If you do, but you may never have to qualify if depending on how that all goes. But you don't know until the time.
Right. Okay, my second question is, say that you bought under agreement for sale and you wanted to do a lease option on it.
Yes.
But the original mortgage, they have the early payout penalty.
Okay.
Because I've talked to some people, and that was one of their main issues when they were selling, is they didn't want to pay for that.
Okay. You got to, yeah. So what you're saying then is if you buy it on an agreement for sale, there's an early payout penalty. You do a lease option to sell it on a lease option, and these people pay you out early. So they pay you out in a year, and there's 2 years left on the mortgage, and that sort of thing. You've got to structure that. You're going to know that, right? You're going to know that there's a certain payout penalty. It depends. What I would do is I would find out in advance, okay, what would happen if this was a situation, where does it stand, approximately get an idea, right, on where your payout penalty would be. Of course, it's contingent on where the mortgage, on where the interest rate goes over that period of time. But I would normally have something in my contract that states that if they buy out early, they need to cover the payout penalty on my mortgage.
Okay. And how often does that happen in your experience?
Not very often. They usually need a couple years to really put it into play, right? So you're usually okay with that. But yeah, I put that in, and actually it does say it in my contract. Now see, so in my agreement for sale contract, if I'm buying on the agreement for sale contract, my contract does not say anything about that. Chances are I'm going to pay it anyways if I'm paying it out early or something. I'm going to pay it out anyways if these people are in foreclosure and they have, they're long gone. But at least it gives me the option to not have to do that. But if I'm selling on an agreement for sale, I'm making darn sure that those clauses are written in that contract. And your lawyer, they're written in my contracts already, but your lawyer, you'll never finalize any of these contracts, I hope, without putting them to your lawyer first, just to have them review, make sure you're not forgetting anything, right?
Yeah.
And do it that way. It may be beneficial to you. I mean, they may come to you in a year. You just kind of take it as it is. As long as it's in your contract and you're covered, they may come to you in a year and say, okay, we can qualify, we're ready to buy out, and it's worth it to you for them to do that. It's beneficial for you. You may look at and find out at the time, okay, it's going to be a $2,000 payout penalty. You're going to go to them and say, look, there's a $2,000 penalty. I'll split it with you to get the deal done or whatever, right? So I kind of look at things individually at the time and see where it's at and see, what's beneficial, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to talking about this more on the 28th.
Awesome. Glad you can be there.
24th.
Great.
24th. Okay.
24th, yeah.
Okay.
Don't want you to show up on the wrong night.
That's okay. You muted Cal, and Debbie. Just allow me to unmute you. Debbie, you're on.
Hi.
Debbie?
Hi, Madeline. Yeah, I'm back.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
Oh, good, thanks.
Good.
One more question. Are the AFS contracts legal in all 4 prairie provinces?
Okay, I would look at that as another lawyer question. I do teach people from BC and Alberta and Saskatchewan, and haven't heard of any problems. I always, like I said, ask them to go to their lawyer to double check things before they move forward on anything. But I haven't heard of any issues. There are things in BC of transfer taxes and stuff like that you have to find out about. So it just depends. I don't believe there's transfer taxes in Saskatchewan. Where are you located, Debbie? Are you
in Alberta? You're
in Alberta? Okay. You'll have no problems in Alberta with the contracts that I'm using and whatnot. But yeah, I'm sorry. I think it's best you sign it up and you take it to your lawyer, or talk to your lawyer in advance. Usually when I'm teaching, if I'm teaching anybody from other provinces, I'll say, okay, I'll teach a class, and I'll say, please call your lawyer up just to double check that it's the same for you as it is in Alberta.
Sure, that's always a good idea, even if the laws tend to change, then you're covered that way.
Well, yeah, and you know what? It's also very important when you're getting a lawyer, and I give out all of my contacts and stuff to my students, and so they have all of that. But if they're looking for a lawyer, I'm also saying, okay, we got to find you a lawyer that understands this stuff, because there's some lawyers that work with the creative stuff more than others, right? So you need somebody that really understands it and is really going to go to town for you and make it happen for you when you're doing these more creative deals, right? So
absolutely.
That's kind of an important thing as well.
Oh, thank you. Good.
Thank you.
Okay, Debbie, you muted. Just follow up answer from Don. And
okay.
No transfer tax in Saskatchewan. My lawyer had to make the agreement Saskatchewan compliant. So here is the answer. So
excellent.
We learn everything.
Might be Don, my student Don. Is that who it is? Don, both. He's done my course now, but I think that might be the Don, because I had a Don out of Saskatchewan. So
yes, here we go. That's right.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. I thought you'd be on tonight. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much for showing up. So, Madeleine, would you mind just explaining what exactly you've been doing and what kind of benefits our club members can have it by knowing you and working with you?
Absolutely. You know, first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for staying on so long, because I know these things kind of carry on for a long time, and I see that almost everybody has stayed on for this whole time, and we've been on for an hour and 45, so I really appreciate that. I know your time is very valuable. Just to let you know a little bit more about us, I do run a 4-month mentorship program. It's a coaching program for real estate. When I started it, it was mostly people asking me if I would mentor them, and I didn't have a program in place at the time. I started it about a year and a half ago now. Through my training, I felt that the best training was over a longer period of time. And doing, you know, like a quicker 3-day blast, you know, you're very motivated when you're there, but to actually take it and put it into play when we all get back to reality is sometimes easier said than done. So my best training was over longer periods of time, and so that's how I structured mine. So I pretty much teach everything I do or have done in the past. So I start with corporate structure, then I move into marketing, then we move into more extensive training over 4 weeks in foreclosures. Then we do agreement for sale and lease options, simultaneous closes, assignments, assignments where you're assigning a contract to another investor for a fee. And then I also teach joint ventures, and because, you know, we all run out of money sooner or later and we need people to qualify or different things for us. So I teach joint ventures, I teach RSP second mortgages. I've done RSP second mortgages for leverages, or for leveraging on just about all my properties, and it's a feature that I offer to my joint venture partners in order to buy more properties with them. For instance, I have one of my investors, I had a $500,000 line of credit to work with. We could have bought he normally could have bought 3 fourplexes. You need about $150,000 per property. With leveraging with RSP mortgages, I bought 32 doors, so what's that, 8 properties instead of the 3 he could have normally bought. So I teach all of that. My husband, Dan, he teaches landlording and management over 2 or 3 weeks. Then I go straight into deal structure, so that's where you bring the deals to the table, because by that point, every week I give you homework, okay? So every week you're kind of moving forward. I'm kind of pushing you to do, you know, you do this week, it forces you into making the offer. You do this next week, it forces you into learning that, you know, so that's how I structure it. I don't do it so that it's overwhelming. I do a little bit of homework every week. So my goal is over that 4-month period that, you know, that you're able to take this on your own. You've done a few deals. You know what you're doing. When I do my deal structure classes, the last few at the end, that's where you know, now you're doing deals and you're getting different properties come up. You're bringing those deals to me, and I'll do classes where I just analyze your deals. And you know, that to me actually was some of the best training I ever had, was just deal structure, just listening to somebody who knows how to structure those deals, listen to the 3 different ways they could do it that you may have only thought of one. So so I find that that's kind of, you know, important training. It's all done over webinar. So you can sit in your office in your PJs, or, well, maybe not in your office in your PJs, but in front of your computer. It's an hour and a half a week. And if you can't make it during that time, I have a secured student section on my website, and all the recordings are loaded onto there. So then you can listen, you know, whatever's convenient for you. And I also put all my, I'm an open book to my students. I put all my contacts, all of my contracts, anything that you might need in the future is on there. And so basically I hold your hand teaching you for several months until you're ready to do it on your own. And you know, as long as you follow up with the homework and you kind of do it every week and keep up with it, it kind of forces you into, you know, basically doing what I've been doing for several years. So anyways, you know, I'd be happy to send you more detailed information about the program if you're interested. My email address is on there, via@shaw.ca. So, you know, or call me. You know, the best number to reach me on is my cell phone. I'm in and out of the office all the time, so I don't check the messages in there all the time. So my cell phone is 403-471-4337. And I guess, to finish answer your question there, Yark, is more recently we've expanded our business into the U.S. as well. I've joined with 3 partners in the U.S. I've been out there for just over a year. And some of you might have been on the last Canada REIC webinar a few weeks back with my accountants out of Ontario talking about corporate setup and the pros and cons of purchasing in the States. And so we're providing out there renovated, tenanted, managed investment properties that are turnkey for $30,000 to $50,000 a house. And then we've also expanded into multifamily in Texas. So we currently have a 158-unit building under contract there for $14,000 a door. And the reason I was so interested in that market is I look at that and $14,000 a door. The rent's average 2 bedrooms, $550 a month. Here I put 3 properties under contract last summer, larger multifamilies, and couldn't get those babies to cash flow no matter what I tried to do. So it just furthered my resolve to push forward into the States, and I went to Texas in September with my partners, and we researched Houston and Dallas, and I work with some strong management partners as well on the ground there. So that deal is, we're looking for joint venture partners on that, so it's a minimum investment of $100,000. And yeah, we've got a solid plan and presentation and everything on all of that. So anyways, I can send you any detailed information on any of the programs that you might be interested in. So feel free to send me an email or give me a call and let me know what your interests are, and I'd be happy to help you out. But on that note, I guess, I so much appreciate your guys' time. Like I said, we've gone almost 2 hours here, and I know that's a long time to take up. And I'm amazed how many of you have stayed on that long. So thank you so much. And Yark, thank you so much. I appreciate the time to speak with your group, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future. So
perfect.
That's great. Thank you.
So Don is just following up with your information about your courses. By the way, very good coaching. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. I really appreciate that. And that's another thing. If you guys are ever interested, you're more than welcome to talk to, any of my past students and whatnot. And I appreciate that, Don. I really do. Thank you for that.
And Don, if you do not mind, there is an listings on Canada REIC resources and review courses, and then there's the course of Madeleine, so you can put your review, and that will be putting her informations, higher in the pool of the courses. So that's a very important thing. So more likely, you're more than welcome to do that.
Thanks, Yark. I appreciate that.
So now there's some follow-up greetings. Great webinar. Thank you very much, Madeleine and Yarek. And that's from Andreas. Tim, excellent webinar. Thank you so much. Shane, thanks, Yarek and Madeleine. Don, thanks. Thank you very much, everybody, and looking forward to see you online. Wow. Okay, have to read it again. Rob, had a great time. See you on the 24th. Excellent. Loaded with value. Travis, Carl, thanks to you both. It was great. Perfect. Guys, go ahead.
Awesome. I have to say, guys, thanks. You brought a huge smile to my face. That's great, because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to talk for too long about lease options versus agreement for sale, and I was, how am I going to do this and still save enough for information for the seminar? So I really appreciate your feedback, and I thank you for your comments. That's awesome.
So definitely looking forward to see everybody on the 24th on the February at 7 p.m. in Calgary for attendees which they cannot show up, and I do really understand, because a membership of Canada REIC is growing drastically. We will be recording with your permission, Madeleine, right?
Of course.
And that will be posted on iTunes, Canada REIC, and any other multimedia websites. So get ready. Looking forward, and thank you very much, and have a nice day.
Awesome. Thanks, Yark. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Okay, good night.
Bye-bye.